All right, let's just jump right in. We tend to think of our institutions, the government, the legal system, the economy, as these neutral things that just kind of grew over time. But what if that's not the case? What if they were designed? What if they're actually machines, built piece by piece over centuries with a very specific purpose? To take raw theft and domination and repackage it as legitimate governance. That's the huge idea we're going to unpack today, that our most respected institutions are in fact machines of deception. So, the entire argument really boils down to this one powerful contrast. The source material basically says our whole social order stands on two legs. The first one is a simple, original act of theft, the grabbing of land, of resources, of other people's work. But just taking stuff by force, that's not stable. To make it last, you need that second leg, fraud. And fraud is the whole setup, the stories, the laws, the beliefs that makes the original theft seem okay, maybe even natural and fair. And this isn't just a new idea, it has this fascinating historical and legal background. In Latin, you've got fundatio incipiens. That literally means the beginning foundation. That's the raw grab, the theft. And then comes fundatio perficiens, the completing foundation. That's the fraud. It's the ideological layer that locks the theft in place and makes it look respectable. So you could say theft builds the house, but fraud is what gets everyone to admire the architecture. So let's pull back the curtain on the first big machine that does this, the state. First on the list, the state. It's the most obvious machine, right? And its real genius is in how it changed over time. It didn't just stay a gang of warlords. No, it evolved. It moved away from just open violence to this incredibly sophisticated system for managing what we think, what we believe, and what we agree to. Now, what's really interesting here is how power gets less personal. It all starts with the warlord, right? Where rule is just raw physical power. Then it shifts to the king, who claims a special right from God or his bloodline. But then, and this is a critical step, power moves to parliament. This is where the fraud really kicks into high gear because it creates the illusion that the public is participating. And finally, we get to today's administrative state, where domination is hidden behind neutral-sounding words like management. Brute force becomes bureaucracy. And this is just a perfect example of the whole thing. The word parliament itself comes from the French word parler, which just means to speak. It sets up this whole theater of public involvement. See, you get a voice, you get a place to talk. But the structure is designed from the ground up to make sure the real decisions stay with the people at the top, whose main job, really, is to protect property. Okay, so if the state builds the stage for this theater of consent, then our next machine, the law, is what writes the script. And according to this analysis, its main job isn't really justice for all. It's to take all the stuff that was nabbed in the original theft and turn it into legally protected property. And this is not some modern invention. The blueprint for this goes all the way back to ancient Rome. They had this legal concept called dominium, which basically set up the idea of absolute, total, almost tyrannical ownership. It was a piece of legal technology that let you take something by force in a conquest and launder it into a totally legitimate title. The soldier's sword was effectively swapped out for the lawyer's deed. And this idea was just perfected centuries later. The hugely influential English jurist William Blackstone used those exact words to describe property, that sole and despotic dominion. By treating ownership as the sacred, absolute thing, the law essentially washed away the crime of the original theft. It didn't matter how the land was taken anymore. All that mattered was the piece of paper that said who owned it now. Just think about how we treat different kinds of harm. You've got tort law, which deals with harm to a person, like if you get a broken arm. Then you've got contract law, which deals with harm to wealth, like a broken agreement. And here's the kicker. The legal system, by its very design, treats injuries to wealth and property as way more serious, way more important than injuries to actual human bodies. The fraud is making us think the abstract is more real than the physical. Which brings us to what might be the most brilliant and sophisticated machine of them all, the corporation. The source calls it a ghost in the machine. It has no body, no morals, it can live forever, and it's designed to do two things perfectly: concentrate wealth and make responsibility completely vanish. The modern corporation actually grew out of those old imperial chartered companies like the East India Company. And what were they? They were basically private businesses that were given the power of a state to go out and colonize and extract wealth. The real genius of this model was that it cut the link between an action and its consequences. It was this revolutionary invention for pushing all the risk onto the people being colonized and the powerless, while funneling all the profit back to the investors. But honestly, the most unbelievable part of this whole story is how corporations in the US got the rights of people. You'd think it was from some huge, deliberate landmark ruling, right? Nope. As you can see here, in an 1886 case, a court reporter, not a judge, a reporter, scribbled a little note in the case summary, a headnote, saying the court viewed corporations as persons. The thing is, the court never actually ruled that. But that little note got cited in later cases as if it was the law, and boom, a massive legal fiction was born. I mean, that is literally fraud becoming law. So, where are we now? Well, the machinery's gone digital. The last machine we'll look at isn't made of stone or paper. It's made of code. And it doesn't just manufacture our consent once in a while. It does it constantly, in real time, and it's tailored just for you. And this is the crucial update to the system. Power isn't just a one-way street anymore. It's not just top-down. It's now a feedback loop. The system is constantly watching, measuring, and analyzing what we all think. And then it adjusts the story in real time to keep things looking legitimate. It doesn't just rule you, it learns you, and it uses what it learns to manage you. This completely changes how control works. The old way was pretty straightforward: censorship by decree. A king or a government just bans a book, period. The new way is what you could call censorship by design. Dissent isn't made illegal, it's just made irrelevant. It's algorithmically drowned out. Unpopular ideas just get buried under a digital avalanche of noise and distraction. And I think this line from the source just nails the feeling perfectly. The fraud is all around us now. It's ambient. Legitimacy isn't something you have to passionately believe in anymore. It's just something you passively scroll through on your phone, getting reinforced with every single swipe. So let's step back and put all the pieces together. We've looked at the individual gears, but the real power of this idea comes from seeing how they all lock together into one giant interconnected machine. And there they are, the four machines all humming along together. The state rebrands force as consent. The law rewrites privilege as justice. The corporation hides accountability inside a legal ghost. And now, the algorithm manages how we see it all, every single moment. See, they're not separate things. They're all gears in one vast machine, and each one makes the work of the others even more effective. And that brings us to the final, really powerful takeaway from the source material. This one sentence just captures the entire idea. Fraud isn't the opposite of the original violence and theft. It's the perfection of it. It's the beautiful, intricate, awe-inspiring cathedral that's been built to make us all forget it's standing on stolen ground. And that really just leaves us with a final, lingering question to think about. If we start to see our world as this incredible, complex cathedral, does knowing about its stolen foundation make it any less beautiful to look at? Or does it just make it impossible to see it as just?